Where's Annalisa?
Where's Annalisa?
Oh, she left already. So
we can hear ourselves.
yeah, she had to leave another panel.
No. Yeah, no, we are in the stream, and we are in the StreamYard, that's right. Oh, but this is a problem.
Why?
Because we need to play music from here.
And
1 second, please. 1 second. So we don't want to play this. We want to.
join the team.
Great. Okay, I figured it out. So now. Okay. Guys, we want to start. You want to focus on this side of the wall? Great, awesome. Okay, then, yeah, welcome to our beautiful space.
Yeah. Before we begin anything, I want to get a sense for who is quite technical in the room. If you could raise your hand, just so we could get feelers of how deep we could go. Okay. Very cool. Cool.
We have to go anyway.
I mean, we're going to go from all places, which will be really great. So thanks for everyone for coming. Welcome to the Luxo Hub, especially if this is your first time. We're really happy to see you here. Here at the Luxo Hub, this is a pretty new space that has opened up for the community and everyone in blockchain and Web3 and artists and all other types of disciplines as well. We really want this to be a gathering space to bring in community from Web 2 to Web 3 and a place where all of this can come together. This is a co-working space and an event space. So if you have any questions or inquiries, we have a QR code here. Please take note as well. And also tonight, following this, we will have our Sunset Social on the rooftop with Holonym, which will be a lot of fun. We have a few very special guest DJs lined up and some great food and drinks as well. And then tomorrow we'll have another infrastructure for culture day as well from 2 to 5. And we'll be going over mini apps as well and doing some deep dives and learning about how that looks with universal profiles, and then also some community use cases and talking a lot about what can be done and wanting to hear a lot of feedback from people. And how this will look today is we're going to show you guys what's going on with Luxo, Universal Everything, Universal Profiles, and what's happening around metadata. And then we're going to pass it off to Holonym as well. And then after that, we really want to open it up to a discussion to everyone, to hear everyone's input, to hear what people have going on, if people have ideas, if people have integration suggestions, if people have different use cases, and so on. We really want this to feel like a very cozy living room conversation that everyone feels invited and welcome to speak, and all ideas from technical to non-technical are shared. And we want all people from technical to non-technical to be collaborating here. Cool. And what I would like to do before we begin is to do a quick exercise on becoming a little bit more present and grounded. I know a lot of people have been coming in from traveling, and a lot of people are coming from other events, going to other events. So I thought it'd be quite nice if we could just take a few seconds to do a few deep breaths. So I'll invite everyone to close your eyes. And breathe in for 1, 2. And breathe out 3, 4. Breathe in 1, 2. Breathe out 3, 4. Breathe in, open chest. Breathe out, ground feet. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, when you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes again and just feel a little bit more here. Cool. Thank you. So, hello, everyone. I'm Kat Banis. My role is the Director of Transportation. The Director of Transformation. Sometimes I do some transporting as well. I think I was just transporting now in a breathwork. Yeah. I'll let you know your schedule soon. Okay. I'm the Director of Transformation at Universal Everything. I do a lot of things from strategy work, working a lot with him and seeing what will happen in the future, how we'll plan things. But a lot of what I do is the interpreting, the communication, the what we call marketing in Web 2, but what I prefer to call just the translating and making sure everyone understands this work as well. And I lead creativity for UE, Luxo, and all the new things we have coming up as well. This is my universal profile. You can see I have my title, my correct title on there, Director of Transformation. Here you can see my followers and all of the links to my Web 2 socials as well. This is my universal profile. You guys want to check it out? You can go ahead and scan this QR code. And this is my profile link that goes to my universal profile. So when I say the new Web3 is human, that is what I mean. A profile that is human, where you see my face, where you see a description of me, you can see my followers, you can see my socials, you have a lot more context about me. And all of that is on chain. So when I say the new Web3 starts, or is human, I mean, it starts with identity. And identity is the core of what we want to focus on here, because that is what's going to drive us forward into a whole new Web3 that goes way beyond DeFi and actually can do and work with blockchain, and we can actually connect with people one-on-one. And that starts with universal profiles.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the foundational layer. And Luxo, you see here, obviously, in the space, and this is the Luxo hub, right? So why is there a network? I mean, how many of you guys familiar with Luxo, have heard it before? Okay, a few. All right. So in essence, Luxo is a network like Ethereum. It's in fact the only network that is the same like Ethereum compared to other networks that are alterations and changes. And the reason is because on Ethereum we have these standards. I'm not sure if you know, I proposed the first standard back in the day, 2015, ERC20, which you probably heard, which is the token standard. And after that followed like a lot of standards. In fact, I think we had ERC 7000 something. It's not that there's 7,000 standards, but the number counts up with every issue created. So, but there's thousands of standards by now. it's very hard to get traction around a standard. I mean, ERC20 is the one who has all the traction, right? Other token standards kind of failed. And even standards that are being pushed like by the foundation, the Ethereum Foundation, really had a hard time, getting adopted. 4337, whoever knows, is this gas-less proposal. Even that is not really integrated everywhere. So it's very hard to break the network effect of existing standards.
And there's a lot of bias with the standards because other VCs want to create random standards to.
Most of the standards are probably because a project thought like I get more attention if I make a standard. Exactly. Yeah, that's why we have so many probably. Yeah, and yeah, exactly. Really often we don't need to always have standards for everything, right? Like we could standardize it, but you want to have a standard when there's a lot of interfaces and a lot of like tools that would benefit from talking the same language, right? That's when you want to have a standard. So why do we need Luxor? Why do we need another I1? I mean, that's the question I get all the time. I guess you have that question mark in your mind right now. And the reason is because we took the time, and that started out in 2017, actually. We took the time to rethink what are the foundational standards need to look like for us to really be able to change the space and move forward, right? Because we've been over 10 years, Ethereum, I don't know, I need to calculate right now, but I think 15 years or 14 years, blockchain or Bitcoin in general, and we still are only about trading, and buying and selling something, and we haven't really moved into social besides some projects trying to go in this direction. And our theory is because it's the wrong fundamentals. And sometimes if you want to create the right fundamentals, the only way to do that is to start from scratch. Not start from scratch by saying everything is shit and now we need to do this all completely new, but actually learn from the past, improve it, but then build up that holistic foundational set of standard pieces that work also nicely together. And why do we need a new network? Because it's literally impossible to come up with so many changes on a foundation level and then hope that you get any kind of attention on an existing network where everybody already has ERC20 and everybody does it a certain way. If you do a new network, the benefit is not only can you fund that development, which is another big question, and you're not selling a token that is not useful, but at the same time you have everybody who's coming in be willing to try out the new way. And you also then end up with every user on that network doing it the new way. Every asset that's on the network using the new token standards. And that means now you have possibilities and protocols that you couldn't just do anywhere else. Because now you have new flows, new functionalities that come from the working together of all of those different standards. And if we just look at the profile, actually your profile is just not a single standard that says super duper profile or universal profile. It's actually a composition out of many standards. And we differentiate actually between metadata standards and functional standards like smart contract functions and so on. And you see here on the right side, a lot of the foundation of what we built came out of a standard from Ethereum. It's called ERC725 that I proposed 2017. It was the first early version of a smart contract account. And literally plenty of our stuff is based on exactly that one. If you look at the number, it's the exact standard after 721, which was the NFT standard, which there was no other standard. There was just other issues in the middle that didn't really make any standard. So it's kind of funny that the first account proposal literally came at the time when the NFT proposal came. Yeah, so the way we see this is like really like we don't see ourselves as like a competition to Ethereum or the Ethereum ecosystem. We see ourselves as an extension. Basically, Luxor is a frontier to explore these new standard proposals and what can we build if we have those new building blocks. And then once we really see how this works and that it makes sense, this stuff will be beneficial to any other chain, right? Once people see it works and makes sense, then adoption across other chains is more likely because people can see the example, right? And those standards will work on other networks as well. Universal profiles are cross-chain. I mean, they can be cross-chain, they will be cross-chain. So yeah, Luxor is born out of the Ethereum ecosystem, and it's part and contribution to the Ethereum ecosystem. But a little detour, you know, sometimes you need to branch off, do it here, and then it can branch back in.
Yeah, and like you said, universal profiles are born on Luxo, but will be universal or are universal everywhere. And so what we're talking about today is the metadata. And you can see here the standards here that are specific to metadata in your universal profile. And what is metadata? Metadata is data about data, right? So metadata turns profiles into rich, expressive representations of real people, identities, and experiences. It's the part that makes us human. It's that part that I was showing you in the beginning about who I was, all the links I have, my photo, and everything. So it's that part that brings our humanness or aliveness really on chain. Metadata, it enables meaning, social interaction, and cultural context to exist natively on Web3. So when metadata is built into our identities, it makes our on-chain experiences, transactions, and interactions inherently social and inherently human. And that's why when I say the new Web3 is human, we also mean the new Web3 is metadata for all of these reasons. Okay, so we talked about Luxo, the network, and we talked about the standards, and then we talked about the identity piece, the universal profiles, right? So you have an identity piece, you have a profile, now what? And that's where universal everything comes into play. So universal everything is the windows or the interface or the UI into the new standards that you use your profile with, right? So this is where it gets really interesting and really cool because you can express a lot more and do a lot more now. And with universal everything, we envision it as the town hall for the Web3. But what's even cooler is that you can now have your Web2 life come and meet your Web3 life all in one place, making it much more usable for anyone outside of the space, outside of Web3, and bringing your Web2 world into Web3 as well. So universal everything is creating new ways to belong and connect. Now we can take a look at some of the universal profiles in universal everything, just to give you a better idea of what we mean.
Yeah, and before that, the guys who stand here, there's more space here, and if you want to sit there, because that will go a little while. If you want to stand all the time,
cozy.
you know, just feel free to sit there. I think Jonathan, that's your laptop, right? The blue one? No. Kevin, could you hand this laptop up to? Yeah. So thanks. Cool. So yeah, you're all cozy. Good. Great. There's also pillows you can sit and lay on the floor. Okay. So the term UI has now a new meaning because it means universal interface. Right? That's ideally what we would need to have, right? We need a universal interface so we don't have many different places scattered, but ideally we go from people to apps rather than going from apps to people, which is the internet right now, right? And which makes it tricky to know, okay, where do I find something about Bertrand, right? Or Jonathan or Kat, you know, where do I find what they're interested in? What do they do? Where they interact? Wouldn't it be great? It's just like, no, I search for the profile link of Kat, or I find the profile link, or I get it, or whatever, and that's the place where I can find everything else from, right? Whatever they're interested in, they're using Twitter, they're posting here, they're posting Farcaster, they're part of this DAO, they're owning this, whatever else, right? So the sky's the limit, really, and we're in the beginning, so of that limitless, yes. Yeah, maybe you want to talk more about your profile.
Yeah, so I really wanted to. So I showed you my profile before in the beginning, right? And in universal everything, it expresses itself even more. So when you scroll down, you can now see way more about me. You can see the kind of music videos I like. the communities I'm interested in. You can see my Web2 socials. You can see my Twitter, what's going on. You can see what music I'm playing or listening to in my playlists. And you can see a little bit about where I'm coming from in my past life experiences and all about me here. You can even pull things through like voting, right? And you can even do things with mini apps, like have 2-player games that are on chain with other profiles in Universal Everything. So right here, what you're seeing is a mix of Web 2 and Web 3, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So let me just look at my little notes here. So this is obviously in the beginning, and I want to dive a little bit more into this whole metadata aspect. So Universal Everything right now is kind of like the gateway into, you know, the universe, what has been built or what's happening on Luxo. Right now there's over 30,800 profiles. That's this little number there. That's profiles that have a profile picture and a name that people created. I think there's also anonymous profiles. People can obviously not have a name or pictures, and there's 70,000. But the number we show is the one where there's pictures and stuff. This is obviously early stage, so you know this is not like the final, and it's also just one interface. Given that this is a decentralized account, there can be many front ends, right? Your account is not anymore bound to a platform. Your account exists on chain first, and then we make a pretty interface, and other people can make another pretty interface. And then once the world and the community gets big enough, then obviously you pick your interface based on whatever you're interested in most. And then obviously we need discovery. As you see, this is quite gibberish looking. There's a feed that we're working on, so you will be seeing what people are doing in a human readable way. We need to translate the blockchain gibberish into something that people get, right? But you need to start one by one, because we have a lot of things that we needed to do. You know, like when you reinvent on such a fundamental level, you need to rebuild a lot of things from scratch. You need to build, you know, MetaMask again, right? That's our browser extension and mobile app. You need to build a lot of the tooling again. You need to do a lot of work that already took some years. So, long story short, I just want to show a few cool profiles so you get a little bit of an impression. And then I will dive a little bit more on how this whole metadata works. Like Kat said, your profile data is basically data that's kind of referenced off-chain. In this case, it's as simple as a JSON file that just has descriptions of text and images referenced. The grid that you see below here is basically nothing else than another JSON file that has a reference of boxes that says, okay, here's an iframe, load this website into it. You know, here I want to load this picture, I want to load a text box. And that really like gives you this ability to load just anything you want. Like it's a little bit like the MySpace kind of flexibility, currently without the ugliness, given that you can't do CSS changes. Not yet. Not yet. I mean, someone can totally do that too. But it basically allows you to really like bring Web 2 and Web 3 into a single place. And I think that's kind of like what we so far didn't have in the Web 3 space. We always like think, oh, either I'm in Web 3, and that's here my ENS and God knows what, or I'm in Web 2. You know, it's as if we would have to make, you know, kind of like a choice. Old web, new web. Which of the one I'm picking today? You know, ideally it shouldn't matter, right? Once I have a digital identity that I own by myself, it shouldn't matter which. Everything should go together, right? Yeah, so he put just a bunch of videos. He created some NFTs. I think these are part of the Refraction DAO, which we have this exhibition here. That's a Refraction DAO, and you see some of the artists presenting their work in there. And Sunshine Vendetta is, I think, one of them. So you can look at all that pixelated generational cool bitly looking things. We have actually another artist that I wanted to show, and there's lots of profiles to show, but the interesting thing is that it's up to people what they make out of it, right? So, and maybe also one bigger thing is a universal profile is not just a profile for a person, it's also the profile for an organization, you know, an app or product, a community, an event, right? Luxor Hub should have its universal profile, obviously, as well. Or did we just lose? Oh, did the thing fall asleep? Okay. Good. We're back. So, say again? Rejoin? Ah. You mean share screen? Everything got killed here at once. So, Jean, for example, actually worked with us. He is the person who has been pretty much implementing, you know, all the early standards together with a few other people and me. So basically, the implementations of the smart contracts in Solidity. He also wrote a book about Solidity that you can literally even buy from here. And then he's just presenting, you know, his awesome experiences and what he has been doing. And obviously, because this is an on-chain account, an on-chain account owns things, you know, and on Luxor, this is obviously NFTs and tokens, but they are using all these new standards. And we won't go today into details of why they are different and what allows them to be more flexible. We want to go into the metadata part. That's already like a lot. So I could actually go through many profiles. I think that there's plenty. But as you can see, what we are kind of, I have no idea who this is. But I mean, the thing what we're currently missing is discoverability, right? Discoverability would really help me to figure out what this. We have like kind of like stopgap built in right now. Twitter feed pulling in because that's what's happening on Luxor. It's like you have the community right now wearing pink hoodies, pink baklava bandit masks, as you see. So that's the thing. Mostly through this, you then find cool profiles, projects that do something and whatever not.
What's with the balaclavas?
So, as you see, they go for it. So they want Luxor to be listed on Binance, and that's the thing how the community tries to kind of make this happen. And
we have one guy who wears it every single day and records himself in the supermarket, in the gym, everywhere. Basically, just wearing the balaclava.
Yeah,
it's really cool on the community. Everyone's now wearing them everywhere and changing their profile pictures and stuff.
Yeah, I'm not sure we can see one of these videos because this is not fully. This is just Elfstead pulling in Twitter, but yeah. So there's people who do daily videos.
Are you going to allow direct posting or on the universal everything? Or
so anybody could build a mini app who does that. In fact, there's a project working on a mini app where you can cross post across Twitter and Farcaster. So, I mean, we could build this in natively, but the mini apps already allow anything. So anybody who wants to build like this kind of way of posting things, you could do it in a mini app, convince people to put that mini app under their profile, and everybody has that feature, right? I mean, down the road, yes, once there is better and more standardization around some of those protocols, and there's still kind of like the question, is it going to be Blue Sky? Is it going to be, you know, whatever, you know, do we want to have another 15 protocols? And so once it's more a question of time on our end, you know, whatever we build in here, there's a lot we have on our roadmap, like Discovery Bee is kind of more important than people posting stuff. They can still post on Twitter or Farcast or whatever, you know, like people can just load that underneath their profile. Here, I can just quickly show my profile. So I have this social section here, for example, and there you can see my Twitter feed and my Instagram. if the internet works. Okay, technically you could. Ah, here we go. Yeah. So exactly. Yeah, and it's up to people how they create these profiles. So, but I want to take a little bit of time just to explain a little bit how does this metadata thing works and how does this kind of look on chain. And as you're not so technically, I'm trying to keep it shorter to not make it too complicated. And then we will have Holonym, Gerald, right? Presenting. And then really, like I said, the idea is to have basically an unconference, have an open discussion, really throwing around ideas of if we have this as a foundation, what could happen? If everybody is social by default on a chain, that really enables a lot of things. And if that is, and as you hopefully will see now, very generic, then things will go a little more clear. So that brings us back to our presentation. And we will show 2 little videos that are each 1 minute long. They will show you a little bit like what's happening on chain under the hood and how does this look like on a smart contract level. And it's hopefully, even for the not technical people, clear enough to understand or to see.
I think we're happy with a little bit of technical, so don't stress.
Good.
Let's learn about how a universal profile makes a transaction. The profile hidden in your browser extension is a smart contract account, which consists of 2 standards, ERC 725Y for storing arbitrary data on chain and ERC 725X to interact with any other smart contract. When you want to interact, the private key for that sits in your browser extension and send a transaction to your profile, which internally asks its key manager to verify the permission of the key. Once confirmed, your profile will call the smart contract you wanted to interact with. Welcome to your smart contract account.
So in very simple terms, that's exactly what's happening if you make a transaction, right? So, and if you kind of like look at the EOA world that we had the last 10 years, there would be only that little box in the corner with that key, right? And that would be then talking to the token contract, let's say. So we standardized and built this whole middle piece that allows you to now have many, many different keys, which you will see in this video. It's a little more extended version.
Let's learn about what a universal profile can be. Most wallets in Web3 are based on a simple private key or seed phrase. This key signs your transactions when you interact with other smart contracts. With a universal profile, things are a lot more flexible. Here, your private key is only the access to your profile. The key manager contract functions as the guardian that makes sure only allowed keys are able to do things. To make it more visible, now you can have multiple keys which can sit in different devices to control your profile and can have different permissions. But this can be taken one step further, as these controllers can also be smart contracts, for example, allowing a profile to become a DAO and be governed by many. With this new flexibility, anything can be added, and making your blockchain user experience better. With a key manager, the possibilities are endless, making your universal profile a powerful smart contract account.
Okay, does this make more sense? Once you have, a smart contract, you can now make keys and EOAs replaceable, changeable, and that means it can not only be keys in devices, but there can be other smart contracts like, a DAO governor contract. It could be a Gnosis multisig. Now you can extend it, or you could imagine your company and you want to give your intern the ability to update metadata. You don't want to give them your ledger, right? And then hope he didn't I don't know, copy the seed phrase or whatever. Or you don't want to give him a private key. You want to have him generate his own key. You just authorize him and say, okay, you can update this metadata in our profile. And then the moment his internship is over, you just remove the key, that's it. you know, and
key manager is smart contract, right?
yeah, your core profile is the one in the middle, right? That we saw. This one here on the right. This blue one, that's your kind of core contract. That's called LSP0/ES725 account. It's kind of the bridge naming between the early Ethereum standard and this. And it's a very simple smart contract that just has like, I think, 15 functions or so. It's actually quite simple. That's the one that represents your address. Like the address that you have then long lasting, right? That's your on-chain address that you want to have for the next 10 plus years, ideally, right? You want to have a referential identity if you want to, I don't know, become a musician or make NFTs. There should be one source, your one unique identifier that's going to be valid. So this is not upgradable. This is not changeable. It's built in a way to be very flexible and it's very simple at the same time. The key manager is basically just a logic contract that can be changed over time, that currently is able to manage all of these different permissions. And in this key value store, actually, you write the permissions of all of your keys into your core contract. So that means even if you upgrade the key manager, you wouldn't lose your permissions. You would just maybe extend what it can do. So the blue box is the thing you don't lose. The green box is the thing that could be changed. You could literally put a Gnosis safe instead of this right in front of that. And then all you can do is have a multisig functionality. But it's even smarter to make one of these controller keys a Gnosis safe, and now you can have this plus everything else too. So if that makes sense. Does it explain it? Yeah. Okay, cool. So then, yeah. So in simple terms, I want to say, but in simple terms, that's how it looks a little bit more in detail. And pretty much there's these two levels of standards. And this is kind of very novel on Ethereum because we have this generic key value store on Luxo where you can set a key and a value. And the key is byte 32 and the value is just bytes. And so you need to standardize not only ideally how you write and read data, how you encode and decode data, but also what is this kind of different data? I mean, you could obviously come up with your own stuff and just write it into a profile or ask the user to write it in there, but standards help. So your profile, for example, consists out of those. LSP3 is your profile data. That's just a JSON file. I'll show you in a second how this looks like. Received assets actually registers all the assets and tokens you ever get. So you have an on-chain decentralized portfolio, literally written in your own smart contract. Same like for issued assets, which is the LSP12. That means your profile actually references all the tokens and assets that you created. So you can have a on-chain verification saying, okay, that's my NFT, this is the NFTs and tokens that I created. Obviously, you want to do long-lasting creating all your stuff from the same place. Otherwise, you don't have provenance. And the LSP28 is the grid in this case. That's the boxes below, which is also just a link to a JSON file on the end. It's quite simple. Yeah. Quite. I mean, and how does it look like? I mean, you saw it here, profile and the grid. And obviously, the tokens themselves are standards. So as you can see, Universal Everything, the UI is completely composed out of just standard pieces. And because they're standard and because they're on-chain first, that means anybody can rebuild such a UI and it will look, whatever you want, but uses the same exact data. The follower standard is another standard. In this case, that's a singleton smart contract where you just map this address follows that address. It's just a pointer from one address to another. And that creates a follower system. It's quite simple. Yeah, so maybe to explain this key value store, why is there a key value store? Because isn't that reinventing, smart contract and Solidity? Why the heck? I have variables already, right? So the benefit of variables is, or the problem with variables is, if I deploy a smart contract and I put two variables in there, I can have a function that changes it. I could change the name and the symbol potentially. I can write and change things. But the moment I need a new kind of variable, I have a problem, right? My smart contract doesn't have a new kind of variable. It has the two I came up in the beginning with, and that's pretty much it. If you change that through this get data and set data mechanic, you can now add unlimited more stuff. You can actually add more data that might be relevant to an external contract that you're interacting with into your contract. And obviously, given that it's written into your contract, it's clear to everybody that only you could do that, or you authorized it. So now you have your own little kind of personal information bucket, if you will, that everybody provably knows that you allowed that to happen there. But in order to make this kind of more developer friendly, because if you have these byte 32, so this is how a byte 32 looks like, right? A bunch of gibberish, it's 64 characters. In fact, this hash that you see, the byte 32, is just the word LSP3 profile hashed. There's no magic here, because that's the hash of the word. So we invented this kind of ES75 JSON schema so that tools can read it and then easily parse information out of your profile and into your profile. And it then says how you parse it, how you read it out, how you understand it, and all of these things. So it makes it developer friendly. We have a tool called ES75JS that pretty much takes care of the magic. And then all you need to do is, and I'll click here. Let's see. Yeah. So ES75JS is this tool, and this is here I want to show a little example. This is my profile, right? And you see the smart contract address is actually this CD11 ending with F7, right? That's how the world of EVM, Ethereum, and blockchain currently looks to most people. When you check this out on the Block Explorer, then you see, okay, that is just looking like how stuff looks like, and we have a bunch of functions. So in fact, 21 functions, or 21, yeah, functions is all what your core account has, and half of this is just read function, and it's actually kind of not so much, given this is like a very universal smart contract account. You pretty much have get data batch, the owner, and Israel's signature to call. And obviously for write, you have execute and execute. So, so I wanted to show something. If I load this profile in here, in our ES75 inspect, you can now see all the known data keys that we know we can display. For example, it has this LSP3 data key here, right, that we saw before. This is this 5FE83. The data that's actually stored is this longer string below. And if I take this data key and I go to the actual smart contract on-chain and I say read, get data, and I put that thing in, I will get exactly that string back. So you could obviously write anything in here, right? You could U2FA encode whatever you want, right? So, and that's where, obviously, if you standardize how you encode decode data, it gets a little bit more interesting. We have something that's called a verifiable UI, and this basically just says you want to slice this thing in a certain way that you know that there's a hash function and the actual link to the file. So out comes something that looks like this. You have a hash and you have a link. That the benefit of this is solving one of these Ethereum problems. If I link to a file, how can I make sure it's hash referenced if it's not on IPFS? You just compose a byte structure that says there's a hash always included inside the thing. Yeah.
So the storage won't be limited just to IPFS. It can be
Anything. So the storage on the smart contract is just bytes. Whatever that means to you as a developer is up to you, right? Obviously, the more you standardize, the more kind of other people can also kind of understand what you put in there. And also the user want to understand what he puts into his profile, I guess, right? So when we look at this file and we click it on it, you see it's basically just a very simple JSON file. And that has my name, a description, a profile image in different sizes that all sit on IPFS. They could sit wherever, right? They could sit on your home computer if you want to. And they have some links and some tags. Everything is self-chosen, right? Because I'm writing in here whatever I want. So that's also the benefit. If you let people choose their own name, then everybody already has a name without a name service. A name service just guarantees unique names. But a name service shouldn't be required to have a name in the first place, you know? Like, because you can just pick and choose whoever you want to be. And in our case, in order to kind of make this a little bit more visible, we lost it. We lost the screen. Did we also lose the description? Yeah, there's a limit. A limit of, it's funny that this cancels together. That's super weird. So why? Because everybody can choose their own name. What we made is we put this smart contract address as a hashtag after, and we put the identicon. This way you will be able to differentiate, okay, you know, if the 4 letters after look different, it might be a different Findura, you know, might be a different Tom. And then because we're good pattern recognition machines as humans, we kind of see, oh, the identicon looks different, which is generated out of your address. So it's unique. So we encourage everybody who is building around this to should probably do the same thing so that users aren't get tricked in believing that this is the right Findura or the wrong Findura, right? There will be a name system coming on Universal on Luxo, which is called Universal Name System, which is based on ENS, but it uses the new token standards for the names. And then you can basically buy a name, you have the only name. Then there will be the only Findura. And then we can show it different, like we can remove probably the smart contract address, or you make a check mark on it, or suddenly it will be clear that this is the Findura who spent the money on buying the name. And then there's the Findura who just like picked the name. Yeah, I mean, exactly. So if you look at Tom, there's a bunch of Toms here, I guess.
That's also a reputation and attestations will come into play as well. It will be, you won't be able to replicate different reputations.
There's 2 Toms here. You see there's a Tom here. No, Tom, Tomb. Okay. Yeah, here's 3 Toms, 4 Toms. So you see, bunch of people want to be called Tom. So on the end, what will start to help us to identify people and to make sure that we kind of like differentiate in this decentralized world where you can't enforce, you know, ways to verify. It's the collection of data and information that you attach to your identity makes you more unique. It's your history, it's the followers potentially, it's the passport data and verification claims that you attach to it. You know, it's a KYC provider saying, hey, we checked this person or whatever, we know he's a human. Or maybe decentralized human verification where you have to go to a bunch of your friends, and once they all, you know, check a box, then you become, you know, humanly verified or whatever. Like, that's the thing. The beauty is we can invent anything we want. No, there's no government that needs to tell us, hey, you're the right person and you're the non-existent. You know, that's the beauty of decentralization. So. Yeah, as you see, it's very flexible, and the grid, for example, maybe a little cool thing also to see. It's also just another JSON file, you know, where you have width and height boxes and properties. In this case, you have an iframe in there with a source and properties, and that just makes it completely generic. So anybody wants to make now your profile with a cool looking, with the same grid, right? Can do that. And so imagine a future where you go to Universal Everything, you start to build up your community because it's the first window that exists right now. So you start out building a community, you have friends, followers, you know, I don't know, issued a bunch of stuff. And then at some point comes a different platform that is maybe more catered to your community, maybe with additional features. Now, when you connect there with Universal Profile, you already will basically be like you were there always, because all your followers, your friends, your pictures, your posts, whatever you did is already there. Like as you have been there for the last 5 years, even though the platform just started existing like a month ago, because the data is all on chain. So it like you never you never lose anything. It's always going with you. It's just the windows, the front ends change. The lenses that like make that stuff look this or that way. That's what changes, and that changes everything. It changes the whole way how we can think about the web, right? Because now it's the core that matters and not anymore what frame they're in. Yeah, if that makes sense. Yeah, and I'm almost through. So, and in order to make this kind of simple for developers, sorry, usable. Okay, that may be really looking very confusing now, but that's LSP2. You don't necessarily need to understand all of this. It looks more complicated than it is, to be honest. So because there is a tool, like this, that on the end then makes it kind of very simple, where you don't need to understand much of this stuff. And I know that looks also not so simple but yeah. So the idea is basically you just load the schemas you want, and you can invent your own schemas. You just need to look up what kind of value types, value content exists, come up with a data key, hash it, and then you can just load that into this library, and then you can just do simple calls, and you give it the address of the contract you want to call, either a token or a profile, an RPC URL, and then you can just call get data, or you can say give me the get data LSP3 profile, and you can even do fetch data, which then makes the magic to it's a little bit hidden here, but it actually fetches you. Not only does it get the raw data, but it literally downloads the JSON file, hash verifies it, and makes sure whatever you got is the actual file that the user linked initially. So in short, it is on the end very developer friendly with the right tools. Then it's literally just a one-liner, right? Or two-liner in this case. But it's so generic, it's so flexible, and that makes it so powerful. That's already the last slide, ending with a bunch of complexity here. So it took a minute to lay this out and build this out and think this out and build all of these things, but it gives us a very unbiased, generic foundation to do anything on a blockchain, right? It's just very open. It gives you a way to manage this account, and then you can change it even and upgrade and whatever. It gives a way to store information, which is the metadata, which then whatever people want to come up with could be that. And it has another feature. It can actually react on incoming calls. So every token that's being sent to you, actually your profile gets a call to the universal receiver function, and it can react based on that. So you can build now automations like rejecting tokens, rerouting them. Actually, we have here someone that built a protocol.
Questions after if you want more detail.
And tomorrow we will want to show a little bit of like other mini apps that were built. It basically does when somebody sends you a token, it routes them into a spam box. I mean, they call it universal crave, but see it as a spam box, right? And then you could take it out of the spam box, if you want to have the token, so you don't get flooded with like a bunch of stuff you never wanted to have in the first place. Or you could say, everybody sends me a token, I will split half with my wife, or I put 10% for my kids away in a box, and you could automate that.
Burn them automatically.
Or you could burn them to be a nice decreaser of total supply of other protocols.
To save on the space used to store them.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I mean, you could do that. So the sky's the limit. And what makes this so powerful, and again, we're coming back to why there's Luxo, is because all of these effects you only get when you have a lot of like the standards all done new and built in such a composition that they work together, right? Just universal profiles alone don't give you that functionality if the tokens don't inform your profile or the other protocols. Just the tokens without the smart accounts who can universally be informed, you can't do this either. So a lot of the protocols of the future will come out of this combination of those things to exist at the same network, and plenty of people having them, or everybody having them on that network. And that's kind of like where we will see probably a bit more the gap appearing between an EVM chain that uses those current standards versus using those different standards, because those things cannot happen on the other place, purely because that's what the standards don't do, right? Yeah, and that actually is like the moment where we can transition to human tech in the passport.
Yeah. I think Charlie, what
Thank you.
sweating human beings.
I had to.
Human network. So human network is what we've really based the foundation of everything else that we've built. It's a threshold network for computing something called an oblivious pseudo-random function. So being able to perform multiplication of a scalar on an elliptic curve. That's really useful for taking low entropy data and turning it into high entropy.
1 second.
All of the nodes that are participating in the network are actually doing a good job in computing the data appropriately. So human network we primarily use it for creating something called human keys. I'll just pop over to the website here. So we primarily use it for creating something we call human keys. So what are human keys? This is something we kind of just made up, but funny enough, hasn't been done yet. So instead of deriving a private key from randomness, we actually derive a private key from human attributes. Now, this is like a really difficult thing to do. You don't want to just derive it from any type of human attribute. You don't want to, create it from something that's like, say, very easy to guess or easy to steal. But if you can do this well, you can solve a lot of UX problems, right? So human keys are basically keys that are derived from what you have, what you know, or what you are. And the network takes these data sets, these pieces, splits them up, sends them over to the network. Each node computes a portion of that key share, sends it back to another relay node, which then sends it back to the user, and then they can reconstruct the key on their side. So you could do stuff, for example, like you could create a key from a JWT or like a formatted version of a JWT that might be interoperable across many sign-in methods. You could create it from a combination of passwords or like a specific story. You could have it from biometrics, like telling a story, like physically, like, once upon a time I lived in a log cabin and I'm going to log in now and nobody else knows this because I'm only doing this in private, right? As an example. So yeah, yeah, I mean, I can say a little bit more about human network, but you can check out the AVS. It's live already. It's processing about, I would say, like making 1 human key per minute right now. And a lot of that is coming from the identity verification side, where we have served about 35 million credentials already. And we're moving them slowly over to human network in our long-term plan for decentralization. So yeah, so that's human network. Another really cool thing about the human network is you can actually use it to build wallets. You can think of it as kind of like Web3 auth, right? Where if you want to have some persistent service that's always serving a key, right? Where you don't want to depend, say, for example, on your device to store the key. You don't want to depend on some like single server to always store the key. You want to have some sort of like, I don't know, like a public service, right? Where you can always query it and then your key is able to be derived if you have the secret and can authenticate. So we've built on top of this a 2PC wallets. So a 2PC is a two-party computation wallet where the human network is one network that lets you create the one half of the key. And then the other half of the key is created by a separate network. It's a multi-party network called ICA, which solved this issue called the two-party ECDSA problem that allows these two networks to collaborate and compute an ECDSA signature. So this is really cool because what you can do is put in policies in the same way that in your profile you might have spend limits or something like that. You can put policies on top of your key, and those policies can be always referenced by any blockchain anywhere, can be computed off-chain. You can also incorporate other types of off-chain data. You don't need to worry about gas costs. And so it's a great way for programming security into how you use the key. So if somebody's like, say, like you do set up your human key with, say, like something very easily stolen, like, I don't know, like, say, like a recording of your voice or something, for example, and you wanted to make sure that nobody's able to transfer funds without a second authentication factor, like, say, like a YubiKey that you might keep in your pocket. You could do stuff like that. You can also do really other cool stuff with 2PC, where you can have oracles that calculate risk or do transaction simulation, and you can have the network come to consensus that that transaction simulation was, say, like formally verified, or multiple parties are agreeing on it to kind of prevent these sorts of attacks. So yeah, so the human wallet, just going to give you guys like a quick demo. Garrett's done us a service here and signed into his wallets. We'll just kind of show you guys what this looks like really quick. So, when I see iframe and universal profiles, that makes me really excited because we can do all sorts of stuff. We can embed all sorts of little widgets into there. And there really isn't a great way to represent profiles within the space yet. I think ENS is not intended for that. Farcaster's too much of a closed ecosystem. Lens protocol UX just isn't there yet. So this is an excellent niche, I think, that Up could really fill. So, Gerald, if you'd like to do the honors, and I don't know what your human key is. Enterprise company human key. Cool. So what I've done actually just before this call is I generated a payment link on my phone, which also has a QR code, and I texted it to Gerald. So cool thing about this is you can effectively onboard new users by airdropping them some tokens that could be used either to pay gas. We also have a gas tank in this too. I can explain that a little bit. But it's a really great way of activating a wide user base using existing socials. So like he can click claim here, and note how he didn't have any funds in his wallet already because the gas has already been prepaid. And then he's able to claim. Now he can get started in his very non-functional journey on Ethereum because $5 is not going to get him very far. Alrighty, so that's human network. That's human wallets. Maybe I don't know if I want to talk about gas tank. One really cool feature we have here is other dApps can. So the idea behind human wallet, it's an embeddable wallet. It can be embedded anywhere, and projects can pre-sponsor gas for their users. So we have a developer portal that you can check out here. Need 2 hands for this. And basically, you can read more about the architecture. There is no wallet that exists like this yet, and we designed it this way with some kind of really strong priors and assumptions, especially on the 2PC side. So you can read up on that about why we did that exactly. And we have a portal where developers can come in, and I think, let's see if you'll have to sign in again. I think you will actually, because this is a different instance.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, so you mentioned 2 factors. So what is the second factor?
It's an arbitrary number of factors that you can add. So for example, that's just one. You could add, so for example, Gerald just set his wallet up for the first time for the purposes of the demo. But let me see if I can go back to where he was signed in and claimed his funds. So note also, I'm signing into, oh, he's already signed in. Sorry. So I could go to, in the settings here, we have a little solution for blind signing. So for example, if you want to have a front end to always visualize the transactions that are being sent to your ledger, you can add your ledger as an additional signer here. Oops, click the wrong button. You can just add a ledger down here, select ledger. And when you process the transaction, you'll get a transaction simulation that'll occur on the front end. And then you can verify that everything works out, everything checks out, and then you can sign the transaction on the ledger. You can also add email to FA. And we haven't put this is like super fresh off the press. We just put this into production after 9 months of really intense R&D and development. But we'll be adding over the next couple months biometric auth, so starting with face and extending it to other modalities as well. So yeah, so lots of security settings to be explored there. And then the last bit I really wanted to show you guys is, this is still on the staging. See, still super fresh off the block. We haven't migrated the developer portal yet, but you can play with it in the docs here. Let me see. So basically what we can do here is pretty much customize what the iframe looks like, how you want to use it. And within the developer portal, you can create basically a session and whitelist all the addresses or origins or smart contracts that you want to sponsor gas for. So what you can do is actually build a dApp where you onboard users with socials or whatever and have them do stuff and pay all the gas up front for them, or even program any kind of arbitrary gas, and it's cross-chain. So you don't need to switch chains or anything like that. Everything is done on the back end. So you can think of it as cross-chain account abstraction. Yeah. So yeah, so that's human wallets. The last bit I want to talk about is, before we get into Passport, is maybe like a big picture actually on Passport. So Passport used to be Gitcoin Passport. Who here has a Gitcoin Passport? Okay, cool. You guys are mega airdrop hunters, I'm sure.
No.
Or public goods funders, excuse me. I'm sorry. That's public goods funders. But yeah, no assumptions there. And yeah, so we, Holland and Gitcoin Passport had worked really closely together. We provided KYC and other types of identity verification. And over time, we ended up merging and becoming Human.Tech. So today, Gitcoin Passport is Human Passport. There's about 2 million users that have been created so far, 35 million credentials I mentioned earlier. And really, the cool thing about Passport is it's kind of this, on the other side of, say, like a WorldCoin, where you have one monolithic type way of proving identity. You have this a la carte menu where you choose, as developers, how you want to verify your users and onboard them. And you can even, choose what kind of reputation you want to, say, curate behind your users. Is it like, do you want to measure some type of on-chain behavior or patterns, or do you just care about personhood? These are all really flexible options within the Passport approach. But yeah, I wouldn't be doing it justice. I'm actually going to let Gerald, who's built this thing, talk about it. Yeah. I don't think you do this, right?
I have my own mics. I will just switch. Okay, so great. It's good that we have eliminated the confusion between Gitcoin Passport and Human Passport. It's the same thing. So just to give you a short idea or a short intro what Passport is. Passport is essentially the system where you can sign in with your ETH address, and basically what you get once you signed in is a magic number which we call a human score, and that number is essentially a probability that we assign to your ETH address that there's a real human behind that ETH address, right? And the way we do that is by aggregating a set of data points, and those data points fall actually in 3 categories. The first category is we look at the EVM blockchain history, so meaning we have a data model, and based on your blockchain history, we can kind of pretty well predict if you are a legit user with legit transactions or only a Sybil account or a airdrop hunter and so on, right? The other category of data points that we gather are, for example, Web 2 data points where you have to log in with GitHub, LinkedIn, Google. We check certain things in these accounts, and based on that, we issue attestations. And the other category is like KYC verification, and here we have like Binance, Holonym, Clean Hands, which is also from Binance, and this is basically an attestation that you get if you went through a KYC process. And what we do is for each of these attestations that we issue, we sum them up. Each of these has a certain weight, and at the end you end up with your humanity score. In this particular case, I just have a humanity score of 1.5, so I'm likely a Sybil in this case, because yeah, I have used like an address which is which I'm not using very often. But I think you get the point.
What's the range, like in terms of score?
The score used to be like up to 100, but since then we have added a few more stamps. So currently it's up to 120, I think. And typically our recommendation is that if you have a score of
Yeah.
just a second. Okay.
It's like weird when it
Yeah.
resets everything. Strange.
Thank you. If you have a score of at least 20 points, then it's typically a good indication that it's probably a human behind. And you can list it on your profile, right? And this brings me to
Wow. I don't know. It's random.
Is it from the Apple TV?
Yeah, but like I don't understand why it stops streaming. Yeah. It stops streaming too. It makes actually no sense.
Yeah.
Weird
And also that it logs off after, I mean, it was my 60
No, it's
seconds.
just it's random. Memory limit.
okay. Now, the main possibilities of integrating human passport is, first of all, using the REST API, right? So essentially, if you are an integrator, which would typically be like a company who wants to do an airdrop, for example, or, I mean, one of our customers is also Gitcoin, who is doing the grants rounds and so on. They typically integrate using the REST API, which is basically they can query the score of a potential donor or of potential airdrop receiver via REST API, and then they get back a number. If the number isn't high enough, they can redirect the user to our website, and then he can claim more stamps. Another integration possibility would be on-chain. So in the Passport app, users have the option to write their attestations on-chain, which is queryable at any point in time using, for example, the ES Explorer. But in addition to that, we also index the smart contract data, or the data that's written on-chain in one of our smart contracts, which makes it very easy to query on-chain, right? So for example, if you already go to just a second, I can show it to you. If you go to one of our smart contracts, which is called the Decoder smart contract on Optimism, and if I enter, for example, my ETH address here, then I can see what attestations I have, and I can also get my score. And even we have like this nice function, which is called is
500,000 score.
Yes, it has like 4 digits.
Okay.
So it's just 50. Or we have this nice function which is called isHuman, which just returns you a Boolean function true or false, right? And the idea behind this on-chain passports is that this can also be used, for example, in certain smart contracts to gate smart contract calls, right? If we think about a voting system, I think you have mentioned that sometimes you don't want anybody to vote. You only want some people with a certain reputation or with certain stamps to vote, and then this is something that you can use, right? And last but not least, this is this new product fresh out of the oven. We offer a new way of integrating human passport, which is passport embeds. And this is not officially, I believe, announced yet, but we already have like a working version. And the nice thing about this is that you can integrate this as a React component in your website, which means you don't have to use the REST API to query for your human score anymore. You just integrate the widget and you can already see what score a user has. And if his score is not high enough, then the user can potentially claim new stamps directly from that widget. So basically, EVM checks like your on-chain history can be queried directly from that widget, or you can go through claiming stamps for Web2 data points like Google logins, LinkedIn login, and you can potentially do also KYC verifications. So go through the entire process, scan an ID and scan your face and so on, right?
Yeah, the nice thing about it is it's really useful for custom paths if you want to really hold the user's hand and take them through some custom onboarding where, say, like it's important that they, you want to use it for, say, like something financial use case. You want to maybe perhaps do some light KYC, and then depending on the specific action, say they want to do something more rigorous, then you could do a sanctions check, right? Say like a transaction limit. Say you want to do like transfer over $1,000, maybe it's like you don't need KYC up until that, but beyond that, for whatever reason, you might want to do a sanctions check on the user, and so you can guide them natively within the application without ever leaving the application. It's tied to the wallet is connected.
Yes. And here I have a small demo how this component looks like. Unfortunately, we still have a small bug. It keeps querying continuously. But basically, what I want to show here is that the component is highly customizable. You can theme it. You can have like a small version of component, which you can put also in the toolbar, or if not, like you can have it as a tile. But let me just disconnect it from this address and use another one that is more trustworthy. Yeah, this one's right. If I connect this wallet, yeah, that's right. You see, it has performed the verification. I have, in this case, a score that's high enough. And besides just having the component, I can also extract the data that has been downloaded from our issuer using a React hook, and I can see the exact score and all the credentials that I have and which are valid, right? And based on all this data, then I can decide if I want to grant the user additional privileges on my web app, let's say, or not, right? And then yeah.
Is there a social way of doing this as well, where let's say you pass this thread
which would get his score up. But but a few people would have to stake tokens on Was it working on your computer?
Yeah, it just only happened twice.
Only happened twice, and I don't know why it's happening all the time.
Yeah, it could be firmware or operating system.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, I think like for folks who want to mess with this, if there's any interest, we do have an API key so that you don't need to go through the website, the scoring website to get set up. And yeah, we can mess around. We can even try creating, do it live and try creating a profile and see how it all comes together.
Yeah,
that should be fairly simple if you allow loading in iframe, which you might not.
I don't think we have a restriction on that, but we could like allow loading in iframe. Yeah, that should be possible.
Yeah. I mean, I think like the idea was, I mean, this was, by the way, longer presentation than we expected. I mean, for us, this goes not to you guys. This goes to us.
How long do you want?
Yeah, I want to just. I don't want to watch. Let's watch picture. I don't know. Let's watch Space. Ethiopian. Oh no. Okay. Oh yeah. Let's watch. Let's watch that.
Yes, exactly.
Presentation goes on.
So yeah. Exactly. I mean, yeah. If you have something to finish, then please finish first. But
so I put together like a small demo where I show particularly this integration of the Passport embeds widget, right? The link to my repo is this one. Oh God.
Neutrino.
Yeah. Oh God, I broke it. Right. So if you go there, you find like the topics that I talked about, some instructions, and also the source code of this entire thing. So anybody can like test out. The integration is pretty straightforward, and anybody can test out our API or even this integration just using like the demo API key. So for purpose of demos is just to be like hands-on in 5 or 10 minutes. You don't have to register and go through like the complex process of creating an API key and everything what it requires. Yes, so I just make this a little bit bigger. So if I'm happy to take any questions or.
To get the API key.
It's in the repo. I think it's hard-coded, right? In the repo?
Yeah, it's demo.api key, but if you want to get one for production, you can go to the developer portal, which is like developer.passport.xyz.